Welcome to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show, which hopefully won't keep on skipping like that as it's suddenly started doing. Guys, I'm coming to you from strangely sunny UK where it's nearly at 30 degrees and it's like 8 o'clock here. This is not natural. We may burst into flames at any moment, but we will not worry about that now. I've got a wonderful guest for you. My guest tonight is Toronto's 9-time Queen of Carnival. Her documentary, Becoming a Queen, tells the story of her journey as she and her team makes her final carnival outfit as she strives to make history with a 10th win. Please welcome to the Dr. Squee Show, Joella Crichton.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having me on.
And I almost forgot to put up the poster for the wonderful documentary.
Thank you.
How is everything over there?
Oh, it's just as hot and just as intense over here with the heat so far. And it's not even summer yet, so we don't know what's down the pipeline.
God knows these days. But we're not here to talk about the sweltering weather. Congratulations on the documentary. It's absolutely fantastic. I watched it last night. One thing which I'm really struck by, whereas it's obviously specifically about your journey in Carnival, it seems so relatable to anyone who's just worked really hard or strived to do something, put in so much effort into something. Did you purposely try and make it so that anyone could relate to it?
Yeah, I actually just think it's just a relatable story, but it's a family journey kind of story. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's very relatable for people who have ever done anything. And competing in Queen is sort of like competing in any sort of challenging thing, whether it's sports or, you know, finishing school or anything that's sort of like a challenging thing to do. It's relatable in that way.
The other thing which I was really struck by was I had no idea that Carnival's roots actually came from masquerade balls and the Europeans bringing it over. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so really it's a lot about emancipation. When the slaves were emancipated in the Caribbean, they got to perform as characters that they had seen from the masquerade balls from the French culture. So a lot of the early carnival was people sort of poking fun at their white counterparts who lived you know, with them. It sort of has evolved from that into what we have now. You know, there's the Brazilian type carnival with feathers. There's, you know, the big queen costumes and that sort of thing. But, you know, we still celebrate emancipation when it comes to carnival. And actually in Toronto, the Monday after the parade is now Emancipation Day. So it still has a big connection to its roots, and as part of the Caribbean culture, that's why we do mass.
It's just wonderful because, yeah, it's like now you say it, I can see some kind of roots, but it's just gone in such a different direction over the years and over the centuries, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Caribbean people love that about it, that it's grown so much. There's many types of people involved in it. You know, in Toronto specifically, we're a very multicultural community. So you do, you know, go to the parade, you see everybody, and that's how it should be. It really is about joy and love and freedom. And that means that everybody can participate in it.
And I did love it when you were talking about your dual identity as a Canadian and as someone who comes from a Caribbean culture. And you said when you went home, it felt like you were sort of in the Caribbean, and then you go to school and you'd explain that. It was absolutely wonderful. Maybe you could talk a bit about how is it? It sounds like kind of Toronto is very good at blending those different cultures.
Yeah, and I mean, it's gotten better and better and better. And when my parents first came to Canada, I'm sure they were a little, you know, out of the box and didn't feel like how I felt growing up. But over the years, you know, when you walk down the street now, you see every type of person every type of restaurant, which is really wonderful. Yeah, growing up, it sort of felt like at home. I had, this big Caribbean family, and then I would go to school and be with all of my Canadian friends, and it was fine. Like, I mean, it was just, oh, okay, they're Canadian, at home I'm Caribbean, and I'm a little bit of both. And that's why I care so much about this film and bringing this film, to the world, and especially to other Canadians, so that the people who are out there who are, multicultural like me, can really see themselves in the film and sort of connect with that kind of aspect of having an identity that is different maybe than from their Canadian coworkers or friends.
And you talked somewhat documentary of the fact that Carnival's been in your life for your whole life. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what are your earliest memories of going to Carnival?
When I was a kid, I still have memories of seeing, and this is like the 80s and 90s, like I still remember seeing people dancing and the music and everyone getting dressed up, and we would spend the summers in the mass camp. Well, that's what we call it. They're warehouses. That's where we make the costumes. All day, all night in the summer. Being around tons of Caribbean people, experiencing elders in our community, and they're really fond memories. And I'm I have a son now, and I'm sort of like, oh, I hope that for him too, that he gets to experience being in the mass camp and being around other people who are like him.
It's amazing. And when you spoke, when it was your mum, I believe, you were speaking about the fact that your sister was probably seen originally as the one more likely to go towards Carnival, and you weren't. Was there something you changed, or did they kind of just not get that side of you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, a couple times they had asked me, "Oh, do you want to do like a junior queen or something?" And I was like, "No, hell no!" Like, I would never go up there on my own. Like, I was too shy, or I don't know. I just didn't like the pressure of having everybody focus on you and make you this special costume and having to do this performance. But I don't know. Something in me that day was like, no, I could totally do that. And I've sort of run with it. I mean, in my other life, I'm a performer, I'm an actor. So it's, but sometimes people are not necessarily always at every aspect of their life outgoing. You say that for when you need to do it. But being in Queen, that's very closely related to the kind of work I do, but also there is a lot of pressure, and it's a different kind of pressure than when I'm like performing in a play.
And do you know what changed in you, like in that moment when you decided to just go for it?
I don't know. I just like went for it, and then I was sort of just like, what did I do? And that first time competing, I was so nervous. I just remember like I had like a stomach ache, and I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest, but it was such an exhilarating feeling. And, that sort of got me excited to want to come back and do it again. And, if you didn't have those nerves and you didn't have those feelings, I don't think you would be human.
Yeah. And one of the people which the documentary kind of focuses on, as well as your family, is Kenny Coombs, who is behind all those fantastic costumes. Just speak to us a bit about working with Kenny and kind of your working relationship, making those just wonderful costumes.
Yeah, Kenny's fabulous. He's actually a family friend of ours from St. Vincent, where my parents are from. And so we've known him for years. And my experiences in the mass camp were, a lot with Kenny, because he used to run his own band. And then, when it became to doing, starting this journey with the Queen, it's sort of like he became like a father figure for me, and really took me under his wing. And I think he specifically enjoys making costumes for me, like, which is, I think that excites him. Like, he likes to specifically make costumes for me. I don't know if it's just because we're really good friends and like we have this family relationship, and he's got kids that are, very close to me as well too. So having all those years together, made him, increase his passion for the art form. It's like if you had to make something for somebody you really cared about versus if you had to make something for somebody that you're like, oh well, whatever. Like I think it helps you know, people think outside of the box and maybe be more original and caring and like wanting to meet me to win. So yeah, I like working with Kenny. I mean, I haven't had anybody else make me a costume, so that would be like kind of strange if I had a costume made by somebody else. So I'm sort of sticking with him since we've got such a great track record.
Well, it's got to be weird for him with you retiring, but like now he's, because he said he wants to do this until he's physically unable to. So he's got to find someone else to make costumes for now.
Yeah. He and I mean, I'm sure he will. He has a you know, he has a great track record, so I'm sure there'll be tons of people who want, you know, costumes designed and built by him. But yeah, I think it keeps him going. Like he loves the art form and he loves building these costumes. And he's always said to me, like that moment, you know, seeing the costume on stage for the first time and seeing how people react to it, that really excites him. So he lives for that. And I mean, if you have something you really enjoy, why not?
Yeah, and I mean, what I really loved about it, and it seems like why your relationship working on these costumes works, is it seems you knew when to challenge each other and when to go with someone's idea, and that can be a really hard mix to get.
Yeah, especially with my mom in the loop of it all. You know, she's very protective and she's quite the perfectionist. So, you know, sometimes we have our moments where I'm like, I'm not listening to you guys right now. But
There's one bit where like she was saying about kind of filling in these gaps in your final costume so it looked more of a whole. And I swear your mum's eyes looked like they were ready to roll out her head for a minute there.
yeah, she, you know, she sometimes, you know, she doesn't feel like she's listened to. And so, and then and I know that she knows what's best for me. And I know she knows what's best for the competition, but it can be, it can be challenging sometimes working with somebody who's an artist who sort of just has their idea of how it should be and you thinking, hey, I really think we need this, I really think we need that. Yeah, it's tough because where, you know, where do you give in and where does that person say fine, if you make those changes it won't feel like my design. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, sometimes, and then it's also just like it's my mom, so doesn't, you know, don't, you know, the arguments and like the nitpicking, I'm like, stop, mom, come on, just. But I guess people see that in the film, and I was wondering that when like Chris was filming, I was like, oh, he's gonna see all of, you know, he's gonna see us bickering back and forth, and who wants to watch that? But some people like that drama, right?
And I think that's part of the process. I think a good amount of bickering does make your ideas better. You have to have someone challenge you. But again, as I say, they know when to like go with someone's idea. Someone's idea has to win at some point. And you seem to really know that with each other.
Yeah, well, after all those years, right, we just sort of got to know each other, and who knows what people are saying. You know, sometimes I go to Kenny and I'm like, just don't listen to her, and I'm sure my mom does the same thing to him and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, speaking of mass camp, it's like obviously the documentary focuses on you, your mum, your sister, and Kenny. But I saw a welder in there, and there seemed to be a lot of other people moving about. How many people are in the camp?
Yeah, in the camp, gosh, in our group, it's probably about 50 people. So like a band, this is just information I'm sharing with people. A band, it's not like a musical band, it's a band of people. So this band of people every year creates a theme. So let's say the theme for one year is flowers. Then they decide a queen, they decide a king, and those people create a costume under that theme. But then there's also people who aren't going to be a king or a queen and just want to be part of the parade who need costumes as well. So they also design and make what they call sections. So the sections are smaller costumes that you could just wear on your one body that go with that theme. So you might have a section that's called magnolia or orchid or daffodil under this theme. And so all those costumes have to be made. And so it works out in the end that it's thousands of people because they sell those costumes to, you know, hundreds of people who want to be a part of the parade. So it's a big undertaking, and it takes a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, a lot of designers outside of the, you know, just the king and queen. But on the big day, of the parade, when you see everybody, coming down the road, it's one big performance sort of whatever this theme is. And in Toronto specifically, there it ranges from 12 to 16 bands per year. So it's lots of different themes and lots of different costumes and designs, and that's what makes it so glorious. So all of the years that I happen to win queen, you then become queen of the entire parade, and it's so fun, and it's such a lovely feeling. And I've always been really honored that my costumes have been chosen and that I've been picked as the queen. And yeah.
Speaking of the costumes a bit, like these are, please, I don't want to use too many visual aids because this goes on radio later, but please, guys, do Google this. Get the documentary. Definitely, you want to watch all these fantastic outfits in come to life. But they are absolutely massive, these outfits. And as you've sort of mentioned there is a performance to it. How difficult is it to give a performance to engender something like some spirit you're trying to in that performance, whilst making this massive costume move?
Yeah, it's rather challenging, especially because you're sort of attached. So part of the rules for the King and Queen competition is you can't actually physically come out of your costume. You have to be inside of it. So you're sort of strapped in like a backpack, and then it's buckled around you. And then the costume sits on, we call them wheels, but it's sort of like a tripod, if that sort of describes it. And the tripod is on wheels, and I'm sort of pulling the tripod with the huge costume on top of it. So you can't really get, I think a lot of people have in their mind that like there's a lot of like hip moving and gyrating and that sort of thing, but it's challenging to do that as a queen because the costumes are 200, 300, 400 pounds depending on the design, and you're sort of pulling it. And then there's other things. Sometimes it's very windy, it can be a rainy day, and you still have to perform. And a lot of people don't really get the opportunity to try their costumes on prior to the show. So that's the first time really wearing the costumes. I normally do a fitting about 2 weeks before the show, and then we look at it and we sort of add all the stuff, or like if there's anything we want to change, we do all that, and then I just wear it on the night. So most of my ideas that I have for how I want my portrayal to go of whatever the theme is, I sort of am imagining it in my mind. And then on the night, I'm just sort of hoping it goes the way I want it to go, which, sometimes it doesn't.
Because you talk about moving these, up to 300-pound huge,
yeah,
beautiful kind of things. But it's like, it's almost like in some of the footage, I can see it's like your body's moving the thing and your upper body's like doing the movement of the piece. And just having those two parts of your body working kind of independently must be such a skill to get down.
Yeah, it really, if you've never worn one of these costumes, it's sort of something you have to like work up to getting used to, because they require a specific type of movement. And I think, over the years, I've sort of perfected kind of what works for me. There's people who dance in them differently than me, of course, and so that gives their performance, their own uniqueness. But for me, I so care about the portrayal of the costume and really showing and sharing my energy to the audience. So I've sort of come up with my own way of what I think works for me, and it seems to be rather successful.
And there's a few of the specific outfits I want to ask about, but excuse me, relating to my notes, but I want to make sure I get the details right. So it's in 2007, I believe, it was Fusion in Bloom, which was one which, like you say in the documentary, it was sure to be a winner, but then tragedy struck.
Yeah, that costume, so much work. Without saying any spoilers, I was it didn't work the way it should have. And it's really disappointing when things don't go the way you want them to go, because it's not just about me. It's all of the effort, it's all of the work, and these things cost money. But we had an incident, and that sort of caused things to just not go the way we
I
expected.
mean, without spoilers, like that one didn't win that year. But I thought what was really incredible was it was such a beloved outfit that was used in publicity, and there were these cards. I wasn't sure exactly what they were. Sorry, they're little cards they were used on.
Okay, so the little cards were for our transit system, which is called the TTC, Toronto.
Right.
And so, yeah, and it, I was only on stage, I swear, for like at the most 30 seconds. And it was everywhere. It was a really stunning costume. I had never seen a costume like that. I think Kenny did an amazing job designing that costume that year. And it was, yeah, if it had worked out, that would have been my first win, but it didn't go that way. And so that sort of, lit a fire under me and under Kenny to get things right and to really, know that we have the capabilities to win the Queen, but you got to do things the right way. You have to, make sure you get practice in and you set things up, and you have to care so much about that 4 minutes that you put in the extra effort to make sure things are always secure and well and safe.
Yeah. One of the other costumes which I really loved was the sauce, and you spoke before about the kind of one of the examples you used as a theme was flowers.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Instead of going for flowers, you went for the sun. Which do you think it's that kind of ability to think outside the box that helps you as a helps you to win these?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because you surprise people, right? Because the judges don't know and the audience doesn't know what we're designing. So someone, might have in their mind, okay, well, I think this is what the costume will look like, but then you surprise them. And so the originality of that can make somebody win the competition. There's some outlines of how they judge, and it's, originality, crowd participation. So when you do something that surprises people, you get a great reaction, but also you blow their minds by going, oh, I would have never thought like that, and that surprising aspect of that costume specifically, I think really helps me do well that year. But yeah, it's like you can do anything. You don't have to stick in the box. There's no box.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's costume making. Like you can make anything you want as long as you can like build it and figure out what materials you need to make this huge thing. It's like you can do anything. You can make a car, you can make an elephant, you can make the sun, you can do anything you want. And so that's one of the things that I just love about this art form. It's just like there's nothing stopping you from if you have an idea, just going for it.
And I think there's also that element of like I feel like you have to take a risk to really to gain those great rewards as you have done, winning it so often. It's that risk of you don't know, the judges could have gone, it's like, nope, that doesn't count. They could have kind of dismissed it in that way.
Yeah, and I think too, it's just like if you don't take a risk, then you're not going to surprise the other people, because a lot of times people they want to win, other competitors want to win. And so if you get stuck in the idea of like, what can I do just to beat this person, that sort of makes you try to shape it into a container so that you can go, oh, I want to beat Joella, so like maybe I'll do this year, maybe I'll do this because she kind of did that last year. But thinking outside of the box and taking a risk on something can really make it original. And the people who go to see these shows, they have seen costumes from all over the world, and there's a lot of costumes that look the same. There's only so many ideas and so many designers, right? So when you do take a big risk, it's nice to see something that somebody's just never seen before.
And what do you think? Because the other thing is that obviously this documentary takes place over the years. It shows your costumes from over the years,
Yeah.
and it seems like the costumes have just evolved as you've kept going. What do you think have been the biggest changes to the way costumes are designed, or kind of like how big and bold they are?
Yeah, I think back years ago in the 80s and stuff, people never made costumes this big. Like they didn't think of the wheels, and they didn't do that before. They used to wear them on their back, so it was a lot smaller because that's all that they could do, because you can't carry something that huge on your back.
Yeah.
However, here in Toronto, it's like we have the street space. In the Caribbean, sometimes there's wires overhead, the roads are not very wide. So, knowing our parade route and knowing the amount of space you have gave people the freedom to go, wait, we have this huge space, like we could totally make something bigger, and something way more elaborate. And so that has pushed people to, think outside of the box on the shape and the design. There's still some competitors who, I use 3 wheels. There's people who use 2 wheels. There's people who still use no wheels. So it's not that because those costumes are smaller that they're not, significant or special in any way. It's just a different kind of performance. It's a different kind of portrayal. But I think for our team, we, Kenny really likes something that's impactful. And I think part of the size and the magnificence of these costumes is that we make them all, they're so huge and there's so much detail. And that's kind of what blows, I think the judges' minds away. It's like, wow, they put so much effort into this huge thing. So.
And in 2011, you had your first win with Metamorphosis. What do you think was different that year? What kind of created the winning formula?
I think it was sort of just like, let's just do something that we're excited about, that's not too heavy, that I can really portray. And for me, I really wanted to put on a good performance that year, and it felt like me, and it felt like a costume that really fit me well, and I was sort of excited about playing that character.
Yeah.
So I think that's what did it. But I don't know what's in the judges' mind. So for me, I often, and being like a theater performer, I often just think like, I really just want to put on a really good show. And, the people who come to see the show, they're all sitting there, they've paid for their tickets, they want to be entertained. It's a performance. And so, I try not to worry about the judging, and I try not to worry about what other people have. I just sort of go with my performance. And I think that's sort of what helped on that night.
And like winning it 9 times, what keeps the drive alive? What kind of like stops you from getting complacent? How do you keep yourself kind of just reinventing and keeping on winning?
I don't know, maybe fear. Because it's like you win so many times in a row, and then you're sort of thinking like, I don't want to lose. I want to continue this reign. Like it's becoming a sort of legacy, even though I didn't intend that. But every year we sort of go back to the table and we kind of think through the things that were good, the things that didn't work out. We have like a bit of a debrief, and it's hard to know who's coming to compete, but we try to imagine what other people will offer, and what other designers are out there. And so we kind of put all that together and think, okay, here's what we think will be the best costume. There's no formula to it. I think it comes down to what the theme for our group is that year, and how can we make a costume that's unique.
Yeah, and there was one bit which this was kind of quite a bit into the documentary, so we're already invested in your story quite heavily by this stage. And then you talked about this sort of like, for want of a better term, it's like cattiness, that when you've won so many times, people start casting aspersions, saying it's like, it's somehow rigged or something like that. How hurtful is that in something which seems so community built?
Yeah, I mean, it's just rather disappointing, because they all know the work that we put in. We don't have, like, we're not cheating. We're not trying to, sort of pay off the judges in any way. And we do win it fair and square the times that we've won. So it's like someone just taking away all your hard work. It's like, we've worked for months and months on this costume, and every year, the slate's wiped clean. It's anybody's opportunity to win. And so, yeah, I used to feel, like disappointed, because I care about the community and I care about the culture. And if I didn't win, I would have still come back. It's not like I had to win, but it just happened that way. And so I wanted to be appreciated too, even though, it seemed rather grand that it was 9 times. But yeah, it's like it all comes from a place of love. We're competitors, of course, on that night, and I'm a competitive person, and that's totally part of it. But after the show, and before the show, and during the year when we're working on our costumes, it's all from love and joy, and part of the culture. So
And one thing which you talked about was about the recognition of it, because you talked about the fact that it's arts and craft is the way it kind of gets positioned a lot of the time. It actually reminded me a lot of the fights that cheerleaders in America went through, where they've kind of this huge physicality. They put themselves in great danger where they can get injured and then not be able to kind of like walk for ages. And there is no funding, no recognition of it as a sport. Similarly, in Carnival, there is only prize money for like the winner, like no second place, no third place, and not really any, no funding going towards it. Talk about a bit about that fight that you've gone through.
yeah, it's sort of, I guess over the years, people have just felt like it's just an obvious example of racism, because it's something seen as a black thing, it's a black culture thing, but it's still an art form, and the lack of funds and the lack of support will ultimately kill the festival if people don't see it for what it is. It's like, I can't make you believe that this is an art form, but often when people do come and see it, they are blown away by that. And it's hard to keep going. It's like, until I kept winning, it's sort of, you're just bleeding money and making these costumes, and sort of you're just doing it from your heart. There's nobody supporting you. And so that makes it hard, for a lot of new people to enter, people who have never had this experience to be able to afford to do it. So yeah, it's a tough thing to chat about. I mean, there's a lot of history behind there, and there's a lot of reasons that I don't know really why it's not seen that way. But I think the main thing is sort of just, the lack of support, that the ignorance around why this needs to be supported, and how do I as a person go forward now and help people understand why it is an art form, and why it's not just a huge party. It's actually a representation of emancipation and freedom for Caribbean people, and making costumes is a real thing.
Yeah.
Is like a real effort and a real artistic thing to do.
Yeah, and what I noticed in the documentary, Justin Trudeau coming up to you, and it really felt like that thing of the politicians using the arts to look like they're investing in it without actually putting the money behind it. Is it something you got to speak to him about at all?
Yeah, it's sort of just like, and so many people have talked about this, especially, with the film. It's sort of just like, why don't you guys do this? How come the government doesn't support? How come this? And most recently, I found out that there was some funding in Ontario, where Toronto is, and it's called Heritage. And because Caribbean people technically aren't Ontario, like we're all immigrants or whatever, has sort of affected their ability to get this funding. And so how do we prove that we have heritage? And even though this festival has been over 50 years now, I think this year is the 55th year, it's sort of like convincing these politicians to support us. But on the other side of it, this festival brings in so much money to this city and to the country through, travel and jobs, events that happen over that weekend. It brings in a lot of money. So yeah, it's a tough question. I don't know how to begin even to tackle it.
And I promise I am still here behind the wall of cream, which I'm currently looking at.
No, I'm like, what is going on? Are you still there?
I have no idea what's happening with my camera right now, but we will never mind that now. So one of the things which you got onto near the end was the Queen's eulogy. So the Queen's eulogy, which was your play which you put on. Can you tell us a bit about that and kind of like going back to your performing arts side of things?
Yeah, that was a play that I did for our Fringe Festival that we have here in Toronto. I love, you know, being part of the Fringe, and have always, you know, been excited to do type of, works that are sort of outside of the box. And that had nothing, it was called Queen's Eulogy, but it, like, they did not know that I was the queen or anything like that. Like, had nothing to do with that. It just happened, the play just happened to be called that. So, it's the theater world is sort of just starting to pick up again. I just did a show in May this year, and people are sort of coming back to the theater and wanting to see things. And it's one of the communities, that have not been so well supported during COVID. So there's been a lot of performers who have really struggled during this time because there was very little work. And also there's been a lot of companies that have had to close down because buildings have been lost.
Yeah.
And it's really a tough go for the theater community. So there, I it's just one thing I love, but it's just another one of those stories, same as with the carnival, where until the government and our politicians really see this type of work as important and community building, and something that we all need, like sharing stories and sharing experiences, and seeing art as a very important part of human expression and human happiness. I don't know if they'll ever get the same support.
No, it does seem like the arts were, globally just hit the worst by the pandemic, disproportionately, certainly.
Yeah, it's even I went to a show last week, and the capacity's still 50%. So it's just hard. Like, I mean, it's just hard. And I happen to be involved in this side of things, and it always sort of feels like a fight. And I'm hoping that, artistic people who do work like this, sort of have the drive to continue and know that the work that they do is important, and to not feel left out in any way. But it's hard when you're a Black person who's involved in the carnival, when you're an artist, and everything is always just sort of like an uphill battle. And it's like, why?
Yeah. And again, I apologize. My camera's just completely switched itself off now, but I am still here, I promise.
That's okay.
Your last outfit, Harmony. I would imagine it's very difficult when you kind of finally say it's finished. Was that a difficult thing were you trying to add things to try and keep it going, or were you quite pragmatic about that?
I'm pretty pragmatic. I think there has to be a point where you're like, this is what we have for now.
Yes.
There's something we want to add on, like for the parade day, like fine. But I think that just goes with the whole thing. Like, even just saying, okay, this is going to be my last performance. Like, this is it, sometimes those things are really tough. And that comes with a piece of art. Any art, even in the theater, it's sort of like at some point you have to perform this for an audience. And so there is an end point, but there is beauty in sort of saying, okay, well, this is what we have for now. And I sort of like that with the carnival and with the queen costumes, because you can go on, you can keep going and keep going and keep going, but there is a point where you have to go on stage, and what you have is what you got. And so in that moment, it's sort of a momentary art form where you make something, you see it, and then that's it. But Harmony is a costume that I'll sort of always think about, and always remember. It'll always be special.
Yeah. And I will not at all spoil the end, but please, guys, you really have to watch it. It is the thing which happens at the end has to be really seen to be believed. It's not how you expect it's going to go, let's just say. But sort of moving ahead a little bit. Now you are retired from competition. I know you've been doing some public speaking and things like that. How has life been since you hung up the elaborate costumes?
Yeah, I mean, it's given me a lot more freedom to, like, you know, pursue other things, I also had a baby. So that I don't know. I don't think that would have been possible if I knew I was going to, you know, be competing in Queen and working on a costume. So, but it's sort of been really nice, you know. People invite me to talk about things and to talk about emancipation and carnival and what it means to be a queen, what it means to be part of this community, and I like doing stuff like that. I like sharing this culture with other people because it's, you know, it's supposed to be inclusive. It's this The carnival is for all people, and so I like sort of being a spokesperson for the carnival and talking about how other people can experience it and enjoy it and travel to many places all over the world. There's carnivals like literally every weekend in different places all over the world. So it's not just a Caribbean thing. And, you know, sharing that with our community here in Toronto and getting other people to sort of recognize the festival and maybe see a familiar face, you know, in me is something that I really enjoy doing. And, you know, it's exciting for me.
And as the aspiring kings and queens of tomorrow watching this, what's your top advice for them going, like, if they want to follow your path?
I don't know. I always tell people just like to have fun, and people can feel when you're really enjoying something and when you're having fun, and that it is a performance, it is a show. And so, you know, there's something to respect about that, you know, the audience wants to see you, and it's your chance to show off all the work that you've done. And you know, to be humble and gracious and to be, you know, I just find it, I'm so grateful that I was like born in, you know, in Toronto, and that I've got to do this with a part of my life. So there's a lot of people who don't get to experience this and get to experience that feeling of being on stage and you know, making something and then showing it off, something that's, you know, so unique and special and like out of this world. So to just really enjoy those moments, because it does go by fast. It does.
It's amazing. And finally, where can people find the documentary out there? It's out now, I believe.
Yes, it's on iTunes and Apple TV and any video on demand service for now. So it released in the States in June 14th. Oh gosh, I might be saying the wrong. Yeah, June 14th, and it's released in oh God. So if you have iTunes or Apple TV and on YouTube, check that out. Oh, and on Prime. Gosh, I'm remembering things more the more I talk.
Excellent.
But yes, on those are all video on demand services. So yes, on video on demand, and then in Canada, it's released July 19th.
Excellent. Well, guys, look, I can't recommend it enough. I knew nothing really about Carnival going into this, and I wasn't sure if I'd have enough to talk to you about, but like, it's such an engaging documentary. I think it's a great one for anyone to check out. Now, as I mentioned before, this is going out on radio this Tuesday on SW20 Radio. Is there any track we can play for you when this goes out on the radio?
Any track?
Yeah. What would you like to hear?
I would love to hear. I like the song. It's called Mind My Business. It's a soca song. I'm offering a soca song, and it's by Patrice Roberts.
Fantastic. That will be on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joella. This has been fantastic. Thank you for giving up your time tonight.
I wish I could see your face, but it's been so wonderful to talk to you, and I'm so grateful that, you know, you're chatting with me, and you were really engaging, and it was a really fun conversation.
Thank you so much. I think even the internet's melted here in the UK. We're just not used to this heat. So I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And please remember, in a world where you can be absolutely anything, be kind.